Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the entire Schmincke Horadam watercolor range. If you're interested in Schmincke and what they have to offer, stick around. Just a heads up, this video will be very long, so check in at the bottom to find a specific range of colors that you're interested in, or just grab a cup of tea and enjoy the ride. Schmincke Horadam watercolors are undoubtedly some of the most renowned watercolor paints in the industry, and today we're looking at 140 of them. If you do want to see me swatching a bit slower, feel free to use the settings at the bottom of the video to adjust the playback speed. If you can find the little gear icon below, you can click on that and adjust the speed to your liking. I will be rambling about pigment properties and my personal opinions throughout this video, so if that is not something that interests you, I don't take any offense. Turn on some music and tune me out. Just as a quick side note here, I start the video off pretty far away from the paints, but I get a lot closer after we cover the yellows. So you should be able to read most of the information on the card as soon as I zoom in just a while. Okay, let's get started. Okay, the first color we have here is Titanium Opaque White. It is comprised of PW6. They describe it as brilliant, light fast white with highest opacity and strongest lightning power. And as a second white, they threw in the permanent Chinese White. It is comprised of PW4. They describe it as cold, pure, light fast, traditional zinc white with good white lightning power, slightly cold bluish nuance due to transparency, the best mixing white. This number 206 is Titanium Yellow. It is PY53. It is a semi-opaque, cold light yellow for soft color layers. Next up we have Lemon Yellow, and they actually have a few different descriptions for this one. It is PY3, and the first description is greenish yellow, heavy metal free alternative to cadmium yellow lemon, and then it also says basic yellow with good painting and mixing properties, creates brilliant mixtures with phthalo green. This next color here is 223, it's cadmium yellow lemon. This one is PY35. This one says that it is a traditional color, a cool lemon cadmium pigment, alkali resistant, especially for mixing yellow greens and greens. This one is Chromium Yellow Hue Lemon. It's PY175, a highly transparent lemon yellow alternative to the original toxic Chromium Yellow Lemon. I think they really like using the word lemon for their colors. Overall, the three yellows on the right hand side here look pretty similar to me. They do range in opacity, things like that, but I do think that the original lemon yellow is probably the best choice, especially if you are looking for transparent watercolors. Starting us off on this next row here, we have Vanadium or Vanadium Yellow. It is PY184. This one is highly opaque, slightly greenish, cool yellow. It's heavy metal free and an alternative to cadmium yellow lemon. Creates brilliant mixtures. This color has a bit more light fastness than the other ones that we've seen thus far. It is definitely the most opaque though as well. So definitely something to keep in mind if you are deciding on a palette from the Schmincke colors yourself. Next up we have Cadmium Yellow Light. This one is PY35, just like the Cadmium Yellow Lemon that we saw previously. This one is a strong, brilliant yellow with opacifying characteristics. In color theory, this is often used as a primary yellow. Next up we have Pure Yellow, and this is actually probably one of my favorite yellows that I've seen by Schmincke. This one is PY154. This is a brilliant yellow with modern organic pigment. This one is heavy metal free and alternative to cadmium yellow. In thick layers, semi-opaque, and thin layers, it's transparent, and it has good light fastness and mixing properties. Cerulean hue is number 208. It is PY151, and it is a pure yellow based on modern organic pigment. That's kind of a bare bones description for that color, but it is pretty similar to the one previous to it. They are both benzimidazolones. This next one here is cadmium yellow medium. It is PY35, just like the other cadmium yellows that we've seen that came before it. This one they state as highly brilliant, a strong yellow with an opacifying characteristic. Finishing off this row here, we have chromium yellow hue light. This one is number 212, and it's comprised of PY153. And lastly, the pamphlet kind of hints at that this was released in response to the toxic original chromium yellow. We're starting out this row with a color that I did not expect to enjoy so much. This one is 209, or transparent yellow. It is PY150. This one is super nice, and I feel like this one definitely showcases Schmincke's ability to make something very transparent but yet very strong and powerful and noticeable, and something that can change based on tinting strengths. Next up we have Turner's Yellow. This one is PY216. It says that it's a light semi-opaque orange yellow. I would definitely say that it leans a bit more towards opaque than semi-opaque, but that's just my opinion. Next up here we have quinacridone gold hue. Notice how it says hue. This one is 217. It is made of PY150 and PR101. It is an intense brownish gold, very good mixing properties, perfect for warm green shades, and it also says that it is an imitation of PO49, which is no longer available. I think it's kind of interesting that they state that in their pamphlet or brochure, just because I don't think that Schmincke ever had access to the original PO49. Let me know if I'm incorrect in the comments. Next up we have Chromium Yellow Hue Deep. This one is PY65, and this one is classified as a reddish yellow alternative to the original used toxic Chromium Yellow Deep, and it does have a tendency to orange, so basically just telling us we're moving kind of into orange territory now. Next up we have Cadmium Yellow Deep. This one is PY35 and PO20. This one is a brilliant cadmium yellow with opacifying characteristics. I think Schmincke has a lot of cadmium colors. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments here, but I think this might be the most cadmium colors I've seen on a swatch card. This one here is Indian Yellow. It is PY110 and PY154. This one actually states that it's a modern replacement of former animal metabolism products from India, which was prohibited long ago. I think I want to dig a little bit further into that and really understand how they used to make this color. But anyway, it's classic, very transparent, and a mix of two pigments. You all probably know how much I don't really love the upcoming colors. I'm not a huge fan of orangish colors. And anyway, this one is yellow orange. So PY 110. This one is a brilliant, transparent, and light orange. Like I said, this one is transparent, but if I had rated it myself, I'm not sure that I would have rated it transparent. This one looks a little bit more like semi-opaque to me. It might just be because of the tinting strength due to the dot card, but I do think it is a bit more opaque than they let on. This one here is Cadmium Orange Light, and it is PO20, a strong and brilliant orange with good mixing properties. Number 214 here is Chromium Orange Hue. It is PO62 and an alternative to the original Toxic Chromium Orange. And they do point out that it is an organic pigment and is quite light fast. There is another version of PO20 here in Cadmium Orange Deep. This one is a brilliant, strong orange with an opacifying characteristic and good mixing properties. If I had to pick a favorite orange, this number 218 or the transparent orange would probably be it here from Schmincke. This one is very transparent and kind of similarly to the transparent yellow. Schmincke has those really nice transparency properties that really shine through with some of these colors. This one is PO71 and is described as a brilliant orange red with an organic light fast pigment. It describes some mixtures with ultramarine and how it can make some really nice grays. The intensive reddish character is ideal for mixtures and very light reds. Oh man, I'm already getting behind here. This one is Saturn Red or number 359. This one is actually not a red at all. It's PO64. And it is described as a cadmium-free semi-transparent orange. The next color we have here is another version of PO20. It is the Cadmium Red Orange. This one states itself as a brilliant color with opacifying characteristics to be used as the lightest red. And this one is very opaque. Number 360 here is Permanent Red Orange. This one is made of PO62 and PR242, and it is a cadmium-free alternative to the cadmium red orange that we just looked at with light, fast, organic pigments. Just as a side note here, I think a lot of the combination colors or multi-pigment colors are here pretty early on. I feel like they definitely get less and less, until we get to like the neutral tints, the things like that. Schmincke does a really good job in general of creating paints that are comprised of only one pigment. I'm not sure if they give you a specific number anywhere on the pamphlet here, but they say that 2/3 of their colors are single pigment paints. Next up here we have Permanent Red. This one is PR242 and PO62, which is interesting because the color previous to this, the Permanent Red Orange, was basically the same pigments, just in different orders, so there's more of one than the other, and then vice versa. In other words, I definitely wouldn't purchase both of these. You can definitely just have an orange and then get the redder one and then mix orange with it. You know what I'm saying. Next up here we have Cadmium Red Light, or number 349. It is PR108 and it is described as a warm brilliant red. If I had to choose a warm red from Schmincke, this would probably be it to put on a palette. Next up we have Geranium Red. This one is PR242. This one is a tad less light fast than the Cadmium Red Light that we talked about just previous to this. This one is very intense, semi-transparent, and warm. It's darker and more yellowish than the Vermilion Light. The last color in this row here is Schmincke's version of Vermilion. This one is PR255. It is a metal-free alternative to the traditional Vermilion, organic pigment with good light fastness and opacifying characteristics. And moving on to the next row here, we have Vermilion Light, or number 342. This one is PR188. It is the lightest and most yellowish transparent red, more reddish than transparent orange. This one doesn't have great light fastness, and for that reason I would probably recommend the Vermilion over it. I also would say that as we move into the pinker colors, there are definitely some more feasible alternatives. This one here is Scarlet Red. It is PR254 and it is a modern alternative for the traditional dye stuff crimson or cochineal with good light fastness and opacifying characteristic. I'm definitely gonna have to look that up. I don't know what that means. Let me know in the comments if you knew exactly what they were talking about there. This one here is Cadmium Red Medium and is PR108, just as our Cadmium Red Light. This one basically just says that it's expanding the range of cadmium reds, and it's a medium red with an opacifying characteristic, which makes sense. I'm always a pretty big fan of quinacridone colors, and this one is no exception. This one is PR207 and is Quinacridone Red Light. It is a transparent red, less yellowish than Vermilion Light, and it is PR207. This one is Transparent Red Deep, which I enjoy quite a bit. It is PR144 and it is the warmest transparent dark red. And in finishing out our cadmium reds here, we have Cadmium Red Deep. It is also PR108 and it is a deep red with a slight brownish tendency and opacifying characteristic. This next color here is probably one of my favorites in the entire range. It is the Perylene Maroon. This one is PR179 and it is a cadmium-free alternative to Cadmium Red Deep. It's light, fast, organic, and a high tinting strength. Now I actually enjoy this one quite a bit more than the Cadmium Red just because of its transparency. I think it's a beautiful color and might end up on my palette. Next up here we have Perylene Dark Red, or number 344. It is PR178, and it is a warm deep red with highlight fastness. And we finally hit the alizarin crimson. This one is 357. It's made of PR83-1, and it's light fast as well. It sucks. I'll definitely have to do a video about this particular color and maybe some different versions of it through different brands, but there's a lot of rich history behind this color, and it doesn't seem like anyone has been able to make a true comparison color quite yet. This color here is Ruby Red Deep. It is PR264, and it's a dark cool red, more light and bluish than dark red. Next up here we have Madder Lake Deep. This one is PR83:1 and PR177. This is kind of an augmentation to the alizarin crimson. The light fastness of that traditional alizarin crimson hue has been improved by the anthraquinone pigments, and the color is deeper now, says the chart here. But I do enjoy the color of the original alizarin crimson quite a bit better. Even though the light fastness is mildly better on this one, I would still rather have the original on my palette, although I would be cautious not to use it in originals. This last color in the row here is Madder Red Dark, and it is made of PV19 and PR179. It's the first time we've seen a violet color pop up here. It is a cool saturated deep red with good transparency, and an alternative to Madder Lake Deep with better light fastness. I feel like they're just trying a little bit too hard to get that alizarin crimson glow from these colors, personally. Starting out this next row here is number 362, Bordeaux. It is made of PR187. It is an intense dark red similar to alizarin but warmer, and it is transparent. Up next, we have another very traditional color, Rose Madder. This one is PR83:1 and PR48:4. This is a soft pink mixed from two pigments. The magnesian lake pigment creates bluish reds. Light resistance of stronger layers is rather good. We're starting to step into the PV19s here with the permanent carmine. This is number 353 and originally obtained from real Cocoline louses. Modern pigment allows today light fast alternative. Yeah, this is really interesting. I'm interested to know how they used to make these pigments because I know that most of them are now synthetically produced, so we'll maybe have to dig into that a little bit deeper in a later video. Next up we have number 351, which is Ruby Red, and this one is also PV19. It's a transparent bluish red, modern, light fast organic pigment. Different color layers have strong influence on the character from red to deep red. Next up here we have Magenta, or number 352. This one is made of PV42 and is the primary color magenta in color theory. I've actually been working this one quite a bit on a painting that I've been doing, and it is a very beautiful color, and I haven't seen one quite like it anywhere else. Next up here we have Purple Magenta, and this is PR122. It is described as the original dye stuff replaced by organic quinacridone pigment, and they say it is a bluish alternative to the primary color magenta, which makes sense when looking at it here. Both of these colors, the magenta and the purple magenta, are not great in light fastness, but they do make up for that in vibrancy in my opinion. Oh, and I lied guys, I'm sorry. This is the part where I zoom in a little bit, so it was a little bit later than the yellows, but I hope you're okay with that. The first color in this row here is PR202, and Schmincke calls it quinacridone magenta. It is a red violet between purple magenta and quinacridone violet. It is intense and light fast. Up next here we have number 368. This one is PV19 and it is quinacridone violet. It is a red violet produced from one organic pigment. It has pretty good light fastness and is semi-opaque. I will say that this PV19 looks a lot different than a lot of other PV19s that I've seen from other brands, but that's pretty common among PV19 not to look very synonymous. Next up here we have a historical pigment that Schmincke is very famous for. Potter's Pink is PR233 and it's a brown, dull, very light rose red, and it is strongly granulating. I had never swatched any version of this color, and I do have to say that I think it deserves a spot on my palette. Next up here, we're moving into a Perylene Violet. It is a dark wine red made of PV29, brownish intense violet, very light fast, and an ideal color as a shadow for a red. And I'd say with this color, we are well into purple territory here. This one is Quinacridone Purple. It is number 472 and it's made of PV55. This one is a blue violet between Quinacridone Violet and Manganese Violet. It is intense and light fast. This next color here has to be one of my favorites from Schmincke. I actually own this color and, like the magenta mentioned previously, have been using it in a current painting. This one is PV16. It's light fast, soft, and a brilliant red violet. I'm a relatively new watercolor painter, but I haven't seen many purples that are very granulating, and this one does a very nice job at doing so.